All right, today we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to dive into a single diagram that lays out two totally different economic models that run our world. We're going to break down how they work, what makes them tick, and then we're going to find a hidden connection between them that honestly changes everything. So let's get right into it.
You know, you hear these terms all the time, right? Developed, developing. And you think you know what they mean. But with tech changing everything so fast, the lines are getting really blurry and the connections are way more complicated than they used to be. This whole explainer is going to unpack one model that has a pretty interesting answer to that question.
And here it is. This is our map, our source material for the next few minutes. On the left, you've got a model for what it calls a developed NICS, and over on the right, a developing NICS. We're going to walk through this whole thing piece by piece to really understand the story it's telling. So here's our game plan. First, we'll just look at the two systems side by side. Then we'll dig into their power structures. Who's really calling the shots. After that, we'll see where people fit in, and then how each side even thinks about value. And finally, the big one. We'll uncover that critical link that ties this whole thing together.
Okay, so let's start with the 30,000-foot view. What are the absolute basic building blocks of these two models? Well, right off the bat, the difference is huge. The model on the left, the developed NX, is all about the abstract stuff, technology, big corporate brands, and these super complex financial markets. But the one on the right, the developing NX, it's all about things you can actually see and touch. The government, physical goods, and a workforce that contributes to shared open systems.
Next up, let's talk about power. Who's really in charge in each of these systems? The diagram shows two very, very different chains of command.
So in the developed NX model, the flow of power seems pretty clear. It all starts with technology. That tech is what makes the infrastructure possible, and that infrastructure is what lets these massive, brand-driven businesses operate and pretty much run the show.
But then you look to the right, and it's a completely different story. In the developing NX model, the government is the central player. Infrastructure is there to support the government, which then directs and manages the businesses. The whole power structure is flipped, with the state at the center instead of big tech and corporations. Okay, so we've seen the power structures. But where do actual people fit into all of this? How does our work, our effort, our attention get used in each model? This part is fascinating. In the developed NX, our labor feeds directly into media and corporate stuff, all driving profits. Simple enough. But in the developing NX, the path is different. Labor, which is shaped by education, goes into these collaborative open source projects. And here's the really important part. The main place people engage isn't with companies, it's with social media. Hang on to that thought. It is the key to this entire puzzle. All right, we followed the people, so now let's follow the value. What does each system even consider to be valuable, and how does that value get moved around? The developed NX, it lives in this incredibly abstract economy. I mean, look at this. The diagram shows value flowing through things like stock markets, trading, crypto, insurance. These are all ideas, really. Products are in there, sure, but they're almost an afterthought to this huge financial machine. The developing NX, though, is all about the tangible stuff. It's an economy you can actually see and touch. The diagram makes it really clear. The value here is in logistics, shipping, and physical goods. It's a world away from the screen-based trading of the other model. So here's what we have. Two parallel systems. One is abstract and financial. The other is concrete and physical. They seem like they're in completely different universes. But are they? This is where the diagram shows us its biggest secret. I mean, on the surface, it really does look like two separate loops, right? Money flows on one side, goods on the other. Labor goes down different paths, power sits in different places. You think they could be on different planets. But they're not. There is a bridge, a single, one-way connection that completely changes how these two systems relate to each other. And that bridge, that crucial point, is this mechanism sitting right in the middle of our diagram. It's labeled the profit model. This is the engine that connects the two worlds. So how exactly does it work? Okay, this is it. This is the whole concept in a single shot. If you look really close at the center of the diagram, you see an AI agent. What it's doing is analyzing all that social media activity happening over in the developing NX. It takes that raw data, every click, every share, all that engagement, and it transforms it into profit that flows directly back to the companies in the developed NX. So what does this all mean? Well, this model is basically showing us a whole new kind of global trade.
It's not just about shipping physical goods anymore. The most valuable export from the developing NICs isn't a product you can hold. It's the data, the attention, the digital life of its people, which is then turned into money by the other system. And that leaves us with one last massive question. Is what we're looking at here a blueprint for how the world is going to work from now on? Or is it a warning? A warning about where value is really being created, where it's ending up, and who ultimately wins in our new digital world. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.